Welcome back to the Preventative Health Traveler podcast by Alta Vita, where vibrant well-being meets global adventure. Today, we're diving into one of the most crucial and often overlooked aspects of travel wellness, gut health. Traveling the world can enrich your mind, your soul, but it can also challenge our bodies in unexpected ways, especially in terms of our digestion. That's why in this episode, we're unpacking what every traveler needs to know about protecting the gut on the go and why the state of your gut is such a powerful window into your overall health. Joining us today is Dr. Jen Mann, the lead naturopathic doctor at Nova Wellness in San Francisco. Dr. Jen brings over a decade of experience at the crossroads of conventional and integrative medicine, having guided thousands in their healing journeys at places like One Medical Group. She specializes in autoimmune conditions, digestive disorders, thyroid dysfunction, and hormonal imbalances, all through the holistic lens, which we love. Dr. Jen is celebrated for helping her patients restore their gut hormone connection, live in rhythm with their bodies, and find pleasure and nourishment on their path to wellness. Welcome, Dr. Jen.
Thanks so much for having me, Megan. Excited to be here.
I absolutely love your background, and I was, doing a deep dive in your website earlier, and just the ethos of everything that you represent. I'd love to know. I'm guessing that you're, passionate about travel as well, but is that something that's
Mm.
in your background?
Oh, I love travel. I've always loved travel since I was like a little kid, and I can't get enough. So, yeah, it's a huge part of my life and always planning the next trip.
Yeah, amazing. So I'd love to know, even just from a more personal lens, like what are some non-negotiables or things that you think about and consider that maybe the average person wouldn't when you're thinking about traveling and how essentially not to get sick?
So important. So, my background, how I got passionate about this was I got very, very sick when I lived in the Amazon during a study abroad program in college and went into, it was an amazing program. We went into all parts of the Amazon and visited all types of communities, but in that we're exposed to so many different microbes and water quality, and the water quality wasn't very well controlled. So I walked away from that very, very ill digestive wise. I was sick all the time, bloated all the time, just almost like my body didn't feel like my own.
Mm.
And no matter what I did with food or anything else, it was just always upset. And then it got made everything else in my body worse. I developed really severe depression, panic attacks. I had eczema all over my body, cystic acne. So it was like this, what started in the gut really became a systemic chronic fatigue, brain fog issue, and I was sick for many, many years. So that's how I personally became like really passionate about the gut, was because I knew the impact that it had in my own body. And so when we travel, especially to places that don't have as great a water quality or hygiene as we have in the US or other places, we have to really protect that microbiome, so that we stay healthy. It's one of the biggest, contributors to our health is how healthy that microbiome is.
Yeah, I have so many follow-up questions, but let's divide and conquer. So first line of thinking is, wow, you just touched on the sort of the ripple effect, and I'd love if you could dive a little bit more into that because I think most people don't understand how, not feeling well and the digestion being off, something like, a food poisoning incident can really later impact mood, can later impact like other autoimmune diseases. Like, how are these things so deeply related?
Yeah, great question. So, most people think like, oh, I get the gut issues themselves, the diarrhea or the constipation or the bloating or the gas, which is troublesome. But the gut, when you think about how much of the area of the body it takes up, it's a huge amount of the body, just even space-wise in the body. And it's amazing. And it's connected to everything. And so, some simple things that it's, kind of to play it out in a very straightforward way. I mean, 80% of your immune system is in your gut. So if your gut microbiome or gut function is off, that's a huge impact on your immune system. So autoimmune diseases, getting sick and colds frequently, all those things that affect our immune function, 80% of that is in the gut. Then you have things like hormones. Hormones are processed through the gut. So we eliminate estrogen, for example, as women through the gut. If it's not working well, you're going to have excess estrogen. It can cause PMS and fibroids and breast tenderness and things like that. And also the skin. It releases toxins. The gut releases toxins. So if you're not doing that well, it's going to come out through things like acne. And then there's the gut-brain connection.
Mm.
So if the gut's off, we know that that can affect and cause things like anxiety, depression, mental health problems. So yeah, the gut is like the center of everything.
Yeah, I have a bunch of follow-up questions there too, but first let's go back to the Amazon, if you will. And the other piece that I feel like a lot of people are not aware that, you get better in terms like the immediate symptoms, the diarrhea, the nausea, like that goes away from the experience of drinking some, not filtered water. But most people don't appreciate, like if you don't deal with certain versions of that, it can follow you for a decade for, that there's really some deeper level treatment that needs to happen or you're not going to get over it.
That's right. I think we're in one way, we're used to a one pill solution in conventional medicine, or we're used to like, oh, I got this cold and I resolved it. The thing is like if you've traveled abroad, gotten sick, or food poisoning, even in the U.S. or Canada or something like that, if
Mhm.
you have symptoms of that persist, it can have this like long-term impact on your body. So it's really important. I think a lot of our clients, at least, they're very smart, they're very educated, they eat well, they take care of themselves, they kind of know the foundations, but there's like a deeper level of getting into the microbiome and into the gut lining itself, that resolving that in that deeper place is going to create more resolution and more optimal health in the long term too.
Yeah. I'd love if you could give us kind of a global, like how do you explain to patients that aren't necessarily as aware, like you said, I'm sure most of them come to you because they're already aware of like probiotics and, and like
Hmm.
world that like there are good bacteria in your gut and like how do you explain the difference between bacteria that we need to deal with and bacteria that's really supporting you?
Yeah, so in how I think about it is the microbiome is like a garden,
Mm.
and you have the good things that you want to cultivate, and then you have the weeds in the garden. And because of how our culture is, and you can see this more on a macro level, right? What's happening with our land, what's happening with our forests and stuff, they're getting unhealthier. The same thing is happening with that garden in your gut. And
Mm.
so the good stuff is being depleted, the stuff that you want that really helps your immune system, that helps your energy, that helps your digestion, and the weeds are creeping in. And if you have an event like traveling abroad where you're exposed to contaminated water, or you have a bad food poisoning episode, that balance gets off and you have more of those weeds growing in the garden. So we want to like get the weeds out and really cultivate the microbes and the plants, so to speak, that we want growing in there.
Yeah. So just from a tactical, like obviously trying to drink bottled water, water that you know how it's filtered. Probably avoiding ice is a good solution because you don't necessarily know what kind of water they're making their ice. Are there any sort of, kind of travel wise tips that you can give us that maybe aren't so intuitive?
Yeah, I think that, and then like the raw food thing, I think a lot of people know about that too.
Yeah.
But when I travel to places like India or certain rural areas in Central or South America, I take herbs with me. There's what's beautiful about herbal medicine is like herbs are so sophisticated and they're so intelligent. And there's a certain types of herbs that can select for keeping good bacteria in and getting rid of the bacteria that you don't need. So these are things like berberine, echinacea, grapefruit seed extract. So when I'm traveling, I'll travel with, especially like I was saying, to places like that, I'll travel with a probiotic that you don't need to refrigerate. That's like in a blister pack. You can just pop one out every day. And then at night, I'll take one of those herbs that can filter out the stuff maybe I've been exposed to during the day and keep the good stuff.
Mm.
So I'm feeding the garden and I'm kind of weeding it at the same time if I know I'm being exposed. And
Yeah.
that has changed everything for me and for a lot of my clients too.
I love those tips. Thank you. And can you go a little bit into like the different qualities or, things to look for when you're buying a probiotic and maybe in your day-to-day, what you would recommend? Let's say it can be refrigerated and then, like you said, something that's more travel friendly.
Yeah, so you definitely want something high quality, like, and be careful what you buy online and the quality and all of that. So make sure you're buying from like a reputable source, first of all. And then when you're traveling, you want something that doesn't have to be refrigerated. So most probiotics that come in those bottles, they have to be refrigerated. That's hard to do if you're, especially if you're doing like adventure travel.
Mhm.
So I recommend getting the ones in a blister pack that are more heat and, travel resilient. And then also you want to look at the amount in there too. So you want at least 5 billion, if not, you can get up to, even 25 billion in a capsule. And really the one you want when you're traveling is more of a lactobacillus or a bifido type. And there's all types of, I mean, there's more microbes in your gut than you have in cells in your body. So there's all different types of probiotics, but for travel, you want those types of strains.
And do you recommend kind of like alternating what strains you're taking? Like, is there a benefit to kind of like cross-pollination?
Yes, at home. So when I'm just feeding my microbiome in general and keeping it healthy, I'm eating fermented foods, I'm eating a variety of foods, I'm trying to eat local and organic and real foods. That's all feeding the microbiome. And then I'm rotating through different types of probiotics. So, like I was saying, that Lactobacillus bifido type one, there's spore biotics that are more kind of soil-based bacteria. And there's ones that are kind of like yeast, like Saccharomyces boulardii, that helps push out parasites and yeast and things too. So there's different styles of probiotics. I can get kind of, I don't want
Yeah.
to get too in the weeds, so to speak here, but yeah, there's different types of probiotics, and you do want to rotate through them.
Yeah. Can
Where
you go
men
a little
can
bit
have
into that?
exposure.
Because I think that's kind of not understood, and we're very in alignment in that in terms of diversity. Like
Hmm.
brand the exact same capsule of probiotics and taking it for 5 years is kind of like throwing money down the drain. This
Hmm.
Gia, like you said, not only it's like a diversity of food, you're a diversity of probiotics and prebiotics that are naturally occurring in your diet, but then also you don't want to just take the same thing every day. Like, can you explain a little bit like how that's not mirroring nature and how it works?
Yeah, we are rhythmic creatures. We are meant to move. We're meant to be exposed to lots of different types of bacteria. I mean, from the time you're born, the bacteria that was on your mother, to crawling on the ground when you're a baby, to eating all the different foods from the soil. I mean, we are meant to move. We're meant to be exposed to a lot of bacteria. Like I was saying, the bacteria we have in our gut is more cells than we have in the human body. So we're not, there's many, many strains and many different types in there. And so you want lots of exposures. You don't want just one type taking over everything. You see this even in the greater environment. I'm always, as a naturopath, I'm always looking at nature too, right? It's like when you start growing monocrops or you start clearing forests and you only have one species growing in there, all the diversity goes down, the general health of the forest or the environment goes down. Same thing in your gut.
Mm, yeah, love that analogy. Um, Yeah. So how often do you recommend that patients get a gut health test? And can you give us a little bit of idea? When we run them through Altavita, it's I think often surprising to clients like what sort of information that you can get in terms of vitamin deficiencies. Like it's not just a measure of what bacteria, which is important, but yeah, and sort of like the ripple, the spin-off of what you can learn about someone through the gut health test.
Yeah, the gut health test. So first of all, what they do is they go way beyond what you have done with your conventional doctor. If you were to go to a gastroenterologist, especially in the US, they're not very versed in parasite infections or other types of things that I think other countries see a lot more of. So they do a very high level test. So just first of all, if you have gut issues, and you haven't had a specialty test do that because what you're getting through conventional medicine is so cursory, it's so like minimal compared to what these functional tests can do. So if you feel bad and you aren't getting answers, like dig deeper, get some of these tests done so you can really see on a deeper level functionally what's happening with your gut. And then these tests are I mean, they shed so much light on what I had going on with my gut issues. I had no idea. And then I started doing these tests on myself because I was learning about them for clients, and I was like, oh my God, my gut is a mess. Um, but they really look at the function of the gut itself. So they're looking at how well are you absorbing? How well are you breaking down your food? Do you have any inflammation? Are you having any food reactions? Do you have enough good bacteria? Do you have an overgrowth of bacteria or parasites or candida like yeast? Do you have enough of the prebiotics that feed the probiotics? So it's looking very broadly at the function of your gut itself, much more deeply than what they can see in a colonoscopy, endoscopy, or just basic parasite testing. And then you also want to take a look at the small intestine and get a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth test, a SIBO test. And it's actually a breath test that looks for the gases that the bacteria might be releasing from your small intestine. So you really want to look at the entire digestive tract in a very functional way.
Mm. And how often do you recommend that patients, clients get this done? Like, is it something, how often does that information sort of need a reboot?
Yeah, I would say, if you haven't done like a functional medicine dive like you guys do on your retreats like that, so powerful, start there and at least get it done to see. And then you're kind of, sometimes if you have stuff going on, you're getting some retesting. But I think for maintenance, if you're looking more for health optimization, getting that done every couple of years is a really good idea after you've gotten it to a higher level.
And back to for a second to the probiotics, it's also going to give you a read on like what probiotics you should be focusing on, opposed to just kind of like blindly taking whatever's at the pharmacy, right?
Exactly. They can test for like which ones are growing, which ones aren't growing, which ones you need to take and supplement or encourage in some way. So then you're not throwing all your money away at like random supplements, right? It can be much more targeted, much more efficient, much more individualized. Like we're all very, very different.
Yeah. Can you speak briefly to the relationship of processing vitamins in our system and whether or not you have optimal gut health?
Yeah, so one of the most important things that your gut does is absorb nutrients, especially the small intestine. That's the job of the small intestine is to break down your food and help you absorb all these nutrients. And so if you're not, then you get nutrient depleted, hormones go down, people get chronic fatigue. That's another cycle I see a lot of, this level of depletion, especially in women with iron, B12. So you need your gut. That's like it's one of its biggest jobs is to just feed you and give you the nutrients that you're breaking down.
Yeah. So what are some other, I don't know, commonalities? I know it's like a vast ocean.
Hmm.
But I'm sure you see some trends and maybe more specific to women in their 40s
Hmm.
dealing with in terms of gut health and sort of the ramifications of not dealing with it.
Yeah, I think in our 40s, it's a very sensitive time. Hormones are starting to shift. We're in a perimenopausal transition, like we're moving to the next phase of our hormones. And it's a long process. It's from usually from our late 30s into our 50s that our hormones are really shifting. And what I see in that is like all sorts of things start to crop up. It's like I used to be able to eat this. I used to be able to drink this. I used to be able to go on a trip and not get sick. And now I'm getting sick all the time. Or didn't used to have rashes. It's like, why is my body all of a sudden doing this? And
Mhm.
I think because it's a very sensitive transition time, any imbalances that you may have been able to cover up before because your body was more resilient and didn't have all these hormonal fluctuations going on, you're feeling now. So you
Mhm.
might be like, I didn't used to have gut issues, but now I do. So there's all this kind of cleanup that I think a lot of people need from having taken antibiotics, eating processed foods, being under stress for a long time, doing all the adventure travel. I was working with a client, she's just having terrible brain fog, and she didn't really even realize she had gut issues. And then we got in there, she had tons of parasites, tons of bacterial overgrowth that was really creating her all this cognitive issues that she was like, is this just how I'm going to be? And I'm going to age, and this is part of aging. No, it was really coming from her gut. She'd done extensive travel, and we did a deep cleanup, and then all that cognitive function started coming back.
Mm.
So I think there's a lot of confusion in our 40s because there's so much going on, but it's really, to me, a call to like, okay, let's dig deeper, let's clean things up so you can really like, live your life fully in your late 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond.
Yeah, and I think it's so important just to have multiple experts, like different perspectives looking at the same data and supporting you. And I love that you use that example because I think, brain fog is one of, 75 plus symptoms for perimenopause, but it's not really a really commonly understood one. And I don't think most people would connect something like brain fog to gut health.
Hmm.
And it's so interconnected, right?
Oh yeah, big time.
Is there anything you're seeing with men that maybe they're probably less likely to seek out this kind of support, but just as likely to have digestive issues?
Yeah, I mean, very similar. I see a lot of men come in around the same age too, where they're just not feeling the same. And I think so much of this has been like, oh, you're just aging, just live with it.
Mm,
And men's hormones are really connected to stress. So the cortisol goes up and is up for a long time from stress, from, you know, family, from work, from all the pressures, right? And then the hormones like testosterone starts to tank. And if you have gut stuff going on underneath, I've seen a lot of men who were very athletic and then they go through a divorce and then they're still working out the same way and they just start bonking. So
mm,
that's a very like common trend I see where just mood starts to go down, ability to exercise, recovery from exercise, sleep patterns get disturbed. And again, it's really about supporting the whole body, the gut, the hormones, the stress, the nutrients to build you up and, keep feeling like you felt. And it's not aging, it's just a accumulation of life events. And then the body starts to be like, we can't keep up with this anymore.
yeah. Can you speak briefly to testosterone specifically and how that's affected by not optimal gut function?
Yeah, how I see, okay, there's so much to say about testosterone. And we really have like
Uh,
a,
Open, sorry.
yeah, no, but just to set the stage a little bit, so many people have issues with testosterone now because of toxins and all the toxins and how they affect our hormones and because of the amount of stress that's going on. So a lot of times I see if gut is off, it's another stressor that's decreasing testosterone. That's the most common connection I see.
Okay.
So as we support gut health, then testosterone starts, you get more production again.
Can you dive a little bit deeper? You mentioned, and I think most people are at this point, certainly that are tend to be in the wellness space to some degree, are aware that, it probably wasn't ideal how much we all got prescribed antibiotics
Hmm.
growing up. And also you mentioned processed food. So how are those two things that are, diminishing the strength of your gut health?
Yeah, so the antibiotics, the processed foods, it's kind of a double whammy. They are killing off the good bacteria, which allows those weeds to come in and grow. And they're also preventing the growth of good bacteria, and you're not getting the good bacteria. So you're kind of getting this like double impact of clearing the stuff that's good for you and promoting the growth of stuff that's not good for you. And that's why I'm sure you see this on the gut tests that you do. Pretty much everyone has a disturbed microbiome now. So we really all have to take responsibility and put intention and work into cultivating a healthy microbiome.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of tendencies and habits in a highly industrialized food system is one issue, and then the big pharma uh, umbrella issue. And I think most people understand, okay, I'm taking antibiotic, like it's literally killing off bacteria. That's what it's doing, and it's doing it in like a not selective way. So in some ways, it's good. It's getting rid of this other problem I have, but it's diminishing the diversity in my gut. But with processed foods, can you just touch a little bit more on like why is it bad to be eating highly processed foods? How is that diminishing or killing off good bacteria?
Yeah, so a lot of the chemicals in there are literally disturbing your microbiome and killing off that good bacteria. The other thing that's doing is it's not feeding the good bacteria. So if you have good bacteria in there, it's kind of like you're starving them out.
Yeah, there's like
You
no
need
real
the
fiber.
fiber. Oh, go ahead. What'd you say, Megan?
I was gonna say like there's no fiber. It's just you're just eating essentially cardboard.
Yeah, there's no what we call prebiotics. There's nothing to feed, you have those microbes in there, but you're starving them. Like they're not getting the fiber and the nutrients that they need to be alive and well fed. So it's again, it's like that double whammy of like you're killing off the good stuff and you're starving out the good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Last little follow-up. I'd love if you could
Mhm.
touch briefly on alcohol and how it affects gut health and sugar and it's kind of how like the in some ways those are related in terms of the effect, but some people are leaning more on alcohol, and others more on sugar as sort of like a bad habit. How is that potentially affecting things in a way that they're not considering in the gut health sphere?
Yeah, both alcohol and sugar are very inflammatory. So they're disturbing the gut environment by, alcohol itself is a toxin, it's a neurotoxin. So when you drink it, it's disturbing the tissues, so they're not going to be as healthy. They're killing off the good bacteria as well. So similar to like that processed food, but alcohol and sugar, if you have any sort of fungal overgrowth in the gut, these microbes love to eat it and flourish. So then you're feeding the bad stuff. So this idea of kind of like,
It's like a
you know,
party in your system with all the bad guys.
yeah, exactly. You're just creating this like, so I see this in a lot of clients where they have, and you probably see this too, but this candida overgrowth, this overgrowth of yeast, and then that's really taking over, and you get all sorts of skin things and gut issues and fatigue and the brain fog. So similarly to processed foods, the alcohol is disturbing the environment by creating inflammation and feeding things like candida. And sugar is very, very similar.
Hmm. All right. Well, this was so informative. I really appreciate all of your insight. I'm curious if just we can loop it back to the travel to kind of like close the circle.
Yeah.
I know a lot of individuals have had a bad experience in the past, and maybe on one side, can you talk to sort of like the general range? Some people are extremely sensitive to new foods or new environments, and some people, is it really just the strength of their gut health that makes them
Mhm.
resilient, or is there like a, sort of genetic range or what have you? And then also, is the layer of fear actually impacting like how food can impact be dangerous or have a negative impact versus you roll with the punches.
Yeah, so if you are someone that has a sensitive gut and you're wanting to travel, is that kind of what you're speaking to?
Yeah, so you have probably had a bad experience, or maybe it's just all in your head and you've just like very resistant to trying new foods because you even at home have sensitivities. Anything you would say in terms of yeah, just either being more cautious or potentially
Mm.
like relaxing a little bit and not being so cautious and fearful and in how that might impact you in your experience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's a great, great question. Um, so I think for the most part, if you are someone like that, be working on your gut health, on a regular basis. Partner with someone like you who can help them build stronger resiliency. Like you can do that. You can build a strong gut that can withstand a lot. I used to get sick everywhere I went. Now that's rare to happen.
Mm,
So you can definitely build that strength of it. There is also the nervous system component. And what we know is when the amygdala, the fear system, is really turned up, you're going to start, and the body is hypervigilant and it perceives everything as a threat, then that's the truth of it. If your nervous system is perceiving everything as a threat, it's going to overreact to everything.
mm,
So definitely like working on your nervous system is a whole other topic we get into. But perceiving the world as safe, perceiving your body as strong. Your body is made to be resilient. It's made to survive a lot of different circumstances. And
mm,
so working on the nervous system can really free people up too.
I think that's perfect. The resilience piece, great place to leave it off. How
Mhm.
can people connect with you?
Yeah, you can connect through us through our website. It's www.novawellnessmed.com. And we'd be happy to have a free discovery call with you there. We work with people local in San Francisco, but all through the state of California virtually.
Beautiful. And it's a beautiful website. It's
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to connecting with you more in the future. Dr. Jen.
Great. Thank you, Megan.